Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Bugay. First, this hour, the latest developments. Slovak Foreign Minister apologized to Ukraine for inappropriate statements of Prime Minister of his country about the Ukrainian Transcarpathia. The head of the Slovak Diplomatic Service wrote about this on his Facebook page. The diplomat apologized to his Ukrainian counterpart, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. On the eve, the head of the government of the neighboring country, Igor Matovich, promised the Ukrainian Transcarpathia in exchange for the supply of Russian vaccine Sputnik V. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry immediately demanded an apology.
I talked with my Ukrainian counterpart, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. I apologized to him for the inadequate statements of the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Igor Matovich, about Ukraine. I'm even sorry because just a few days ago we communicated very well in Kyiv on how to further develop our relations.
Social support of the citizens, digitalization and wages increase for medical workers. The Cabinet of Ministers has summed up the results of its work in 2020, and our correspondent has studied the government's plans for 2021.
It is obvious that some things are being done, roads are being repaired, vaccines have been brought and so on. I hope this government succeeds anyway. It is impossible to do everything at once, but there are some changes. I see them.
The work of the current government coincided with the start of the pandemic. Therefore, the Cabinet of Ministers has identified its priorities. Those were improvement of the domestic healthcare system, introduction of the quarantine measures, and social support for the population during a pandemic. The quarantine saved the country from the Italian scenario and saved the lives of thousands of Ukrainians. The main thing is that our government has been given time to revive our medical system, and we've managed to reconstruct the anti-epidemic system from scratch. The government has provided financial support to certain categories of the population and businesses. For instance, the affordable 579 loans program was launched in Ukraine. To minimize the risk of infection, 50 public services were transferred to electronic format, and distance learning was improved as well. Digitalization numbers, they are doing a lot. If everything works out, we will see global changes. Last year, 6,500 kilometers of roads were repaired within the frameworks of the big construction program. More than 200 bridges and hundreds of social objects have been built or restored. The minimum wage was increased as well, and already at the beginning of 2021, utilities tariffs were adjusted, pensions were indexed, and the affordable 7% mortgage program was launched and the vaccination started. And that's not all. The plans for the next year are to improve the national economic strategy and start its implementation, as well as develop the agricultural sector. One of the priorities of the government's activities is to launch a full-fledged work of the Minister of Agricultural Policy. There are two important tasks. This is the launch of the land market on July the 1st and the implementation of a large-scale program to build an irrigation system which can significantly increase yields in the southern regions. Ukrainians, on the other hand, expect decisive actions from the government.
We need more hospitals. I do not mean vaccinations, I mean hospitals, because we lack them now.
Well, they have to raise the economy, build factories, plants, but not the entertainment centers and shops. Raise agriculture, then jobs will appear as well as money. Reported by Vadim Kramer, Vlada Tsurkan and Svetlana Sich, UATV News.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden extended sanctions against the Russian Federation in connection with the occupation of Crimea and military aggression in Donbas. This was stated in a letter published on the White House website. The sanctions imposed by the decree of the U.S. President are valid for one year. After that, they can be extended for another term by a new order.
The actions and policies of persons that undermine democratic processes and institutions in Ukraine, threaten its peace, security, stability, sovereignty and territorial integrity, and contribute to the misappropriation of its assets, and the actions and policies of the government of the Russian Federation, including its purported annexation of Crimea and its use of force in Ukraine, continue to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States.
Ukraine has every chance of becoming the major non-NATO ally of the United States. This was stated by the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. He believes that the member states of the alliance will not back down from the promises voiced for Ukraine at the NATO summit in Bucharest in 2008. Among such countries that are allies of the United States outside the North Atlantic Alliance, Australia, Egypt, Israel, and Japan.
Say that there is another consummate diplomat with us, and that is.
And we know the difficulties of that. And there are members of the NATO alliance who are yet to be convinced. They're not yet convinced that that Ukraine is ready for a membership action plan or membership at this point. But it will come. It will come. NATO membership, I am sure, will be there. The NATO leaders said this in 2008, and I'm sure they meant it, and they will stick to that. So it will come. But in the meantime, there is a way for the United States to demonstrate security assistance, demonstrate strong assistance and strong relationship to Ukraine as an ally, and that is through the questioner. There's a status called major non-NATO ally of the United States. And in this case, the United States government has full control over that. It needs no approval from any other NATO member.
Rescuers from all over Ukraine continue restoring residential buildings in settlements along the contact line in the Donetsk region of Ukraine. More than 8,000 buildings have already been repaired. This was stated by representatives of the regional state administration. In addition, this year, residents of 11 settlements along the contact line will receive cash payments for housing destroyed by shelling.
The Ministry for Integration of the Temporarily Occupied Territories of Ukraine introduced both the program and the process of implementing monetary compensation for the destroyed housing. In January-February of this year, 2 meetings of the Regional Commission were held, as a result of which it was decided to pay additional compensation to 31 more persons for a total amount of nearly $300,000.
Shelling of the Ukrainian positions in Donbas can be stopped if sanctions against Russia are strengthened. Head of the Ukrainian delegation to the Trilateral Contact Group on settling the situation in eastern Ukraine believes that only the general diplomatic pressure by the United States and the EU countries can influence the actions of the Kremlin. Leonid Kravchuk thought about this in an exclusive interview. The first president of Ukraine noted that general pressure will force Russia to take responsibility for violations of international norms.
Росія не хоче виконувати.
Russia does not want to comply with international law. The state wants to be like in a castle with its norms. The Biden administration has also stated that they will not allow Russia to act as it would like. And we are doing everything to make it responsible for violating the territorial integrity of Ukraine, its sovereignty and independence.
The unfinished Darnitsky Bridge in Kyiv will be completed. The Ukrainian Agency of Roads, Ukravtodor, and State Railways enterprise Укрзалізниця have signed a corresponding memorandum at the Ukraine 30 Forum. Our correspondents will tell you more about the work and how long will it take.
Construction of the Darnitsky Bridge over Dnipro started in 2004, and in 2011 they have completed the crossing itself. However, some parts of it are still unfinished. These are the turn-in exits. They have been in this condition for 10 years already. They say in Ukravtodor they will complete them by the end of this year. Until now, the bridge was on the balance of the State Railroads Company, but after signing of the memorandum, it was transferred to the management of the State Agency of Roads. We have neither expertise nor specialists nor financial resources to put the long-term construction into operation. The Darnitsky Bridge, or as they also call it, the Kirpa Bridge, has been on our balance sheet since 2004. We are ready to complete the construction work. We will really help Укрзалізниця company organizationally. We will accompany this process at all stages, starting from adjusting the design documentation, project examination, and we will accompany the construction process with our specialists. The construction is planned to be resumed in summer, and they want to complete it by the end of the year. After signing of the memorandum, completion of the Darnitsky Bridge in Kyiv became a part of the big construction project.
проект «Велике будівництво», програма президента за минулий рік.
The big construction project is a presidential program. Last year we demonstrated that we can quickly build and complete everything that stood unfinished for years. If the local authorities cannot do this, we will do, but we ask for feedback from the other side. The bridge is working now. 6 car lanes are open, 3 in each direction. There are also 2 railway tracks, but the lack of road junctions makes the bridge ineffective.
10 лет этого клеверного съезда.
It stands unfinished for almost 10 years. It's very difficult to move to residential district of Bereznyaki. The load on the neighboring Paton bridge is enormous. We are waiting for this bridge for 10 years already. More than $500 million were spent on the already erected structures of the Darnitsky Bridge. Now Ukrovtodor should revise the project and calculate how much is needed to complete it. Reported by Vadim Kramer, Artem Holub, UATV News.
In Ukraine, the status of a military chaplain will be the same as of military man. The Profile Committee of the Parliament recommended the draft law on the service of the military chaplaincy for the first reading. Military prize will be able to work in units and subdivisions of the armed forces of Ukraine under a labor contract. From the very beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, the chaplains have supported Ukrainian fighters and are in joint forces operation zone. However, their activities are not regulated by law. Chaplains are considered civilians or volunteers, and they still don't have social protection.
Этот закон дает возможность военным...
That law enables military chaplains to become military men, continuing the tradition that exists in the countries of the world and which we actually have, but there is no social protection for military chaplains, nor are they subordinate to any branch of the military. Now it is like a civilian in the army, and it is clear that the perception on the part of officers and sergeants is different. So the military chaplain will be one of the soldiers, even in a situation if an operation is prepared or held, the chaplain will be considered a military man.
That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube and Facebook pages.